Is your kitchen filled with utensils you feel like you never use? That's me. Knives are probably one of those staples. And here to tell us a little bit about 3 knives that you actually need in your kitchen is Mary Boyd from Creative Kitchen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I admitted before you came out here that I have 2 drawers full of utensils I don't use and probably a lot of dull knives.
Probably. I think
I'm not alone, am I?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I love this when I heard that, number one, Creative Kitchen does some classes. I didn't realize that you did.
Yes, we do. We do knife skills classes fairly regularly, most often when we have some of our vendors in. For example, this last weekend, Messermeister, which is a German manufacturer, was in, and they did some knife skills classes. And then coming up in November, Wusthof will be here, and we'll be doing some classes then.
Before we get to the 3 knives that you need, you had mentioned also that sometimes you'll have several different brands, all the same knife sitting out, and people can come in and like use it and see if it fits right, kind of like test driving a car.
Yeah, and it really is important. We've got 8-inch chef's knives on all of the brands that we carry available for customers to come in and test drive, and it makes a big difference as to how that knife feels in your hand, how it balances, and it really is helpful to be able to try them out before you buy.
I love that idea. Okay, so I know I have a lot of knives in my, and I'm not savvy in the kitchen at all, but when it comes to what 3 knives you really need, and you have more than 3 sitting here, what would you tell people?
I would tell people the 3, I'm going to start with the first one, which is, and the reason I've got so many is because there are a couple of options. The first one that you really should have is a cook's knife or a Santoku, and they can be used very similarly for similar jobs, and that's why I say one or the other. Some people really prefer a cook's knife or a chef's knife, and that's what this is. And some people prefer a Santoku, which is an Asian style knife, and it's got a flat edge versus a cook's knife, which has a nice big belly on it and a point. So depending on what it is you want to do, or which feels best in your hand, because a Santoku is going to be a lighter weight knife and has a very different balance than a chef's knife, like this one.
What do you use
Yeah, so they're both used for chopping, dicing. I mean, I could have a very sharp chef's knife here, and I can actually get through this little bit of bread here, you can see. Yeah. Now, it's obviously better to have a bread knife, but you can do it if your knife is really sharp. You're going to use your chef's knife or your Santoku knife for chopping.
Ooh, look how nice.
Got a little bit of a carrot. This is a very sharp knife. So, and the nice thing about a chef's knife is if you're one who likes to get into that rocking motion, it's very nice to work with that because of the belly.
Oh, nice.
So it just really rocks nicely, and it just gets through your product really quickly.
Okay, what's the second knife that
The second knife that I think is key is a paring knife, and I brought 2 examples here of paring knives, and there are others. This is called a bird's beak, and it's great for getting through things like round objects like apples. Just kind of follows the contours of the apple, and you can get through it really nicely. This is probably a more typical, more commonly used out there. It's got a nice tip on it so that if you want to get in here and core, boy, that was a big chunk, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If you want to get in here and core, you've got a nice tip to work with as well. And I would probably, when I was using these, I might get into back to my cook's knife, where I would cut my core out this way and work with it like
paring
that.
knife? I feel like that's the one I use the most in my kitchen.
No, I think a lot of people use paring knives very frequently, and they probably use paring knives when there would be other knives that would be better for the job.
Yeah. Number 3, the third one.
Number 3 is a bread knife, and this is a great knife from Wusthof. It's a double serrated knife, and this thing gets through breads, cakes, tomatoes. A very nice thing to have. We've even got the label on here. Very nice going through those tomatoes very simply. And when you slice with a bread knife on bread, particularly this one, you're going to get very little crumb. And this is a fairly crispy knife. So it's really awesome to work with. Gets through chunky pieces of bread, gets through tomatoes, thin skin kinds of things. They're just really awesome to work with.
Okay, before we go, I guess this is a great reason to go in. You can get these knives at lots of big box stores, but you don't have the experts to talk to. At
Creative Kitchen, yes. We have a very knowledgeable staff, and we have a lot of really wonderful products to work with.
And you said I can also bring my knives in and get them sharpened? You can help me with that?
You can bring them in and get them sharpened. One thing, I don't know if we have time, I'd love to show you how to hone a knife, because maintaining your knives is really important. So if you can, learning how to hone your knife and getting the burrs off of it before you need to sharpen it. So honing is something that you do very regularly. And it's just a matter of a little bit of this action.
You make it look easy.
It is easy.
Well, we are running out of time, but perfect reason to stop into the store and get some expert advice from you guys. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll be right back.